I'm about to expose the entire operation of my $3.6 million agency, from how we acquired customers to the financials behind the operation. Literally everything, so you can just copy it. And if you don't know me already, my name is Jared Curry. I built 2 7-figure agencies with my partner Matt Shields, and there's 2 ways to build an agency. One method is taught by gurus that barely hit 100K once, and the other is the sustainable, proven method that nobody talks about. But by the end, you're gonna have the entire blueprint that we use to scale to millions per year. So let's skip the fluff. This is gonna be super raw, and I'm gonna map everything out on a mural board. And after being an SMA for 5 years of actually running an agency, not just selling a course, I've built agencies the wrong way, and I've built agencies the right way. And this framework breaks it all down so that you can hit 100K months when scaling. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right, guys, I hope you're ready because this is gonna be a good one. So let's go ahead and start off and break down what we're gonna be going over in the video. So in order to first expose the most important things in our multi-million-dollar agency, we have to look at appointments, we have to look at our team, we have to look at systems, and we have to look at finances. These are the 4 most important things, right? Without appointments, we don't have clients. Without clients, we don't have a team. Without team, we can't create systems in order to service those clients that we got from the appointments. And without money, without finances, we can't do any of this. So these are the 4 most important pillars when it comes to how we structured our agency. So that's what we're going to be going over. Let's go ahead and start off with the appointment side. And as you guys can see, this is a very, very thorough mural board. So we're going to dive through every single step. Make sure you stay to the end. You're not going to want to miss anything. So there's a lot of agencies out there. They do cold email, cold calling. They have all these different outreach channels. And at the end of the day, they're not good at any of them. So what we decided to do was keep things very, very simple. If I had to sum up our agency in one word, it would be simple. And we wanted to just crack the code. We didn't want to be the jack of all trades. We wanted to be the master of one thing. And we knew that paid ads was going to be our route to success. We knew that a lot of other people were doing it, but we knew that we could do it with a twist. And I'm going to explain that here in a second. So I went back and looked at all of our data, all of our P&Ls, and we averaged it out. And it showed that we spent about $56,267.34 to be exact on Meta ads, and an additional $3,047.48. And that's per month, by the way, guys, for the Meta ads and for the Google, right? That's how much we were spending every single month on ads. So on the Meta side, that's all obviously your Instagram and your Facebook ads. And then on the Google side, that's PPC. And I'm going to break down the PPC here in a sec. Let's go ahead and start off with the Meta ads first. We sent everyone to this basic landing page, which I have here. This is pretty much the same landing page that we've used for years at the agency, right? The angle of the offer probably has changed slightly, but at the end of the day, typically it would say 10 listing appointments guaranteed. I think this was like a special funnel we did for like Black Friday or something. But we have the funnel here. We have a simple testimonial video. People can see some social proof. They opt in. Once they opt in, they put in their first name, phone, email, and then they go to a calendar page, right? There's no VSL video. I think we split tested that before, but overall, we just go straight to a booking, and then they see something else after they book. And we're going to break all of that down here in a second. Once they get to the landing page, and this goes back to simplicity, guys. So many people have these long, complicated funnels, these crazy long VSLs. We just kept it simple. We just sent traffic to a landing page that looked decent, and then people could book a call. That's it, right? So PPC, most people are dropping the ball. So when people are going to your landing page, when they're seeing your Facebook ads, when they're seeing your Meta ads, they're also looking you guys up. When they're on the sales calls with you, they're looking you guys up. So if I own an agency called Rocket Realtors, right? And I know, and I check the search volume. You can actually check the search volume on Google to see how many people are looking you up. Maybe it's only like 50 to 100 people a month. I still want to own all of that traffic, right? If I own a Steady Eye, I should be the first thing that pops up. Nothing else. My competitor shouldn't pop up. Zillow shouldn't pop up. I should pop up. I want to own my own traffic. So the way we do that is through Google. That's why we spent $3,000 a month, $36,000 a year on Google, just so we can own the traffic and rank number 1. And we wanted to control what people saw. So we sent them to the wall, or the testimonial wall. is what we would call it, right? And this is a page where there's just an undeniable amount of social proof to prove that it's a legit company and that this is probably their best option, because none of our other competitors had any social proof that was this long. This helped with the sales process. This helped decrease cost per book calls. This really helped with decreasing any sort of trust objections that most agencies got, right? Because we just had so much proof to show people that we were the real deal, right? It just keeps scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. That's what you want to create. You want to create the illusion that there's so much proof that they can't even read all of it, right? That's the goal. They just get overwhelmed and they're like, oh, well, let's find a new objection that we can give this agency, because obviously I can trust them. Obviously their stuff works, or they wouldn't have all this social proof. So you guys need something like that. So whenever someone looked up a steady eye, this is what we sent people to, or we would send them to the landing page, depending on the type of keyword that they looked up. So as you can imagine, if we're spending pretty much close to $60,000 a month, $720,000 a year on advertisement, that's a lot of freaking leads. That's a lot of traffic that we're getting. So it basically broke down to this. We had about 5,558 scheduled appointments, and this is a year's worth of data. I just picked a random year. That translated to 2,893 live calls. We made 2,088 offers after that. We had a 20% offer rate, and that led to about 423 closes, right? That meant a total contract value of $2.7 million and total cash collection of $1,256,598. And that's for the year. So our average cost per acquisition was $1,227.55. Our revenue ROAS was 6.11, and our front end cash ROAS was 3.29. So what does that mean, right? So that meant that we would close probably about 35 clients a month. And to be honest with you, that offer close rate, I've seen so many agencies that have significantly higher offer close rates than us. The difference is they miss the volume. So if you're closing at 40%, but you're doing a tenth of the volume that I'm doing, I'm still going to make more money than you. I'm still going to make more profit than you. So at the end of the day, volume is the only thing that matters. Facebook is a bidding system. Google is a bidding system. So the bidder, if you go to a car auction and you're bidding on a car, is the person who has the lowest bid going to win, or the person with the highest bid? Obviously the person with the highest bid. So what does that mean? If we know that to be true, we know that if we just spend more money and have decent quality in terms of our landing page, our creatives, and our ad copy, we're going to win, and we're going to win the bid. And to be honest, there was really no agency who competed with us in terms of spend. We probably spent the most in our industry when we were running the agency, which is a big reason as to why we won. And Facebook definitely helped us a lot, and Google definitely helped us a lot. Rank number one, get lower costs as a result of all of that. So guys, it's a volume game. Doesn't matter if you have better fulfillment. Doesn't matter if you have this unique product. The person who's doing the most volume is going to win at the end of the day. And because our revenue ROAS was pretty decent, our front end ROAS was pretty decent, we could just keep scaling. You can consistently scale with a 3x ROAS, because if I'm putting in $60K a month and I'm getting on average 3 times that back just on the front end, not including all the recurring revenue, not including all the referrals, not including all the upsells, I'm going to win at the end of the day. So those 35 closes, and actually we'll get back to that. Let's talk about live calls and show rates, right? So there's a lot of agencies out there, they struggle significantly with show rates. And depending on when you watch this video, I may or may not have a video out on my channel about show rates. If I do, make sure you check it out. But when it comes to show rates, right, we want to mitigate as much as possible, because show rates can be very, very expensive if you have a huge no-show issue. So what did we do to mitigate this? It also helped us increase our close rate. We just created a pre-call prep guide, right? So anyone who booked the call, they would get taken to this page. And the reason why people no-show is because they think that what you're going to offer them is pretty much what everyone else is offering them, and they view it as a waste of time. If they can't see, for whatever reason, the perception is that you're just a commodity and not a rarity, they're going to be significantly less likely to show up. So what do you have to do? You need to stand out. And the way you do it is by just telling people up front what you do. So that's what Matt and I did in this video. We just told people exactly what we did. And we also had FAQ videos. So if someone asked, how does the program work? what is it that you do to get me more business? We had a video breaking it down. How much is the program, right? These are all the common questions that you're going to get on sales calls. Why waste all the time on sales calls repeating the same answer over and over again when you can just give it to people up front? And too many agencies are too scared to give away this information, but we did, and it worked. It definitely increased our show rates, increased close rate, and the people that showed up were people that already knew what we did, and it was just a matter of logistics and how to get started because they had all the information they needed in order to make a buying decision. That dramatically helped us with our show rates. On top of that, we had AI videos, which this was pretty cool, right? People don't like to no-show a human. So imagine a prospect books a call and they get a video from one of our closers who's going to be meeting with them, basically saying their name, introducing themselves, and saying how excited they are to meet with them. This dramatically increased your rates, and no one else is doing this. And, in the beginning, we used to do it manually, but after, if you're taking thousands of sales calls a year, you can't do this stuff manually. You have to do it automatically. So that's where AI came in. I'm going to show you guys really quick. Let's see. Here's one example of one video.
Hey Jared, I saw that you booked a call with us, and I'm really excited to be able to speak with you soon and learn a little bit more about your business and figuring out if we're able to help you out in the ways that you're looking for. I will talk to you soon.
Believe it or not, that is AI. So we would send the AI video out to every single prospect before their appointment to confirm the appointment, show them that we're real human beings, even though they, it was actually just a robot, but they couldn't tell, right? We wanted to increase the likelihood of them showing up, and we found that videos were a huge, huge help. All right, let's go ahead and break some more stuff down for you guys. So there's a lot of lemons here, right? There's a ton of leads. I mean, if we were getting 5,000 appointments, imagine how many leads we were getting, at least 10,000 leads a year. That's a lot of lemons, and a lot of waste can occur. The only reason we were able to stay profitable while spending so much, because so many agencies, they spend money and they start getting diminishing returns. We were able to mitigate that because we squeezed the juice, right? So many agencies, they have lemons and they're not squeezing the juice, right? They drip a little lemon into their tea and then they just throw the rest out. But there's so much that could be squeezed out and it can be turned into lemonade. Problem is, no one is doing it. So we created a system called Universal Omnipresence for the agency. And I'm going to break every single step down. Let's start off with retargeting. So as soon as someone hit one of our landing pages or saw one of our ads, we hit them on YouTube, Google Display, and Facebook. It didn't matter if they booked the call, if they opted in, we retargeted them everywhere, right? And I'm not going to show all the ads because I don't want this video to be super, super long. But what I am going to do is show you some of our most valuable. I actually have a video on the YouTube channel about all the ads, our top performing ads that we ever ran for State AI. So you can probably find that on the channel at the end of this video, or maybe I'll link it in the description below for you guys. So if someone went on our landing page, they would then see a YouTube ad. Then if they went on some blog site online or they did some research on Google, they would start seeing our ads pop up on the blog sites with a banner of our company. They would see us getting retargeted on Facebook. I am going to show you one ad that we made specifically for retargeting.
I'm sorry. That's our Thriller music video. Now, I don't want to show you that video. The reason why you're seeing this video is because you watched one of these videos, and we're retargeting you, and now we're going to follow you everywhere. Okay, maybe not that creepy, but the fact that us as business owners, we can follow people around on the internet when they engage with our content is amazing. And if you aren't doing it, you're freaking crazy. Look, I will teach you how to do what we just did to you, retargeting customers that engage in your content for free. It doesn't matter how good you are. What matters is who can get the most attention. And us, Granny, we can help you get attention. Book a call.
So that was a funny little retargeting ad, right? We just made a ton of ads like that and just started blasting it everywhere. That, saved us tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, actually, because all the leads that didn't book a call eventually did book a call. And the cost to get those leads back was pennies compared to what we could have lost if we didn't do that, right? And it helped us prevent us from having to spend more money top of funnel because we just picked the low-hanging fruit on the bottom of funnel, right? Then after that, we had a PB campaign. So that stands for post-booking. So if someone went on our site, they booked an appointment, we would send them an ad And typically it will be like a testimonial collage of a bunch of people saying great things about our company, or an ad from me saying, hey, I saw you just booked a call. Super excited for you. Make sure you join our free Facebook group. And we would redirect people to our free Facebook group, which I'll talk about here in a second. And we would also list testimonials in that ad as well. So people were just seeing us all over the place. They couldn't get rid of us. And it made them realize, wow. And now what it does subconsciously is they put you as an authority. Think of Coca-Cola. Why do people buy Coca-Cola? Because everyone knows the brand. Even though when you could just go ahead and buy the store brand that's unbranded, that's not Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is just sugar water, right? It's just flavored sugar water. You could buy another cola that's store brand, but people pay a premium for the branding. So if you can go ahead and create universal omnipresence, you're in essence creating a brand for your agency to where people are going to pay the premium because they trust you more, because they've seen you more. Right. All right. Let's go ahead and break down the SMS. So as soon as a lead opts in, they get a 7-day sequence. Every single day, they're going to get a text until they book a call. And then on top of that, even if they book a call, as long as they haven't purchased, we're going to send a weekly blast every single week. And on top of that, we're also going to send a daily email blast. And this was probably one of our most effective retargeting strategies, right? Sending a daily email and a weekly SMS. So one week it would be social proof for SMS. Then the next week it would be a direct offer. And then every single day we would send social proof via email or a direct offer campaign. And if you guys are in the agency boardroom community, you guys have already seen this resource where I break down all the emails that I have, all the templates, all of that stuff. And it's so effective. And most agencies just aren't doing it, but emails are definitely not dead. So let's look at this email, for example. 23,000 people got sent this email, 60% open rate. This email alone generated 512 appointments over the lifetime of this email going out, which led to about 51 total closes. That's another $179,000 in front-end cash generated that we would not have collected on if we weren't using this universal omnipresent strategy. All right. The next thing is outbound, right? So every single lead that came in, we had a team of setters. They were calling these leads left and right. And we had a rule of thumb. As soon as a lead came in, you need to call it hot on rice. And I wanted people calling leads until a lead threatened to call the cops. That was literally my rule. I want them to keep hounding them. So we're going to double dial, triple dial, quadruple dial until the lead picks up. And we use something called Kixie. That way, whenever we call the lead, it would change the area code to that lead's area code. So if you have a 481 number, it would change our number to a 481, significantly increase pickup rates. If you're not doing stuff like that, guys, trust me, you need to. It's going to save you so much money. And our setters just use this simple framework, this simple script to triage the lead, make sure that the lead was qualified, and then we would get them booked on a call with one of our closers, or senior advisors is what we would call them. So that's the marketing system, guys. That's how we were able to get about 35 new clients every single month. And then on top of that, get about 5,000 appointments every single year. It was pretty crazy. And as you can imagine, it was definitely a money printing machine. But what do we do once we have all those appointments? Once we have this ecosystem, someone's got to sell them. So that leads me to my next point, which is our sales team, aka the Rainmakers. Now, before we talk about teams, I want to share this quote from Andrew Carnegie, one of the greatest industrialists ever. And he said, "Take away my people, but leave me my factories, and soon grass will grow on the factory floors. Take away my factories, but leave me my people, and soon we will have a new and better factory." Team is the most important thing. We would never be able to build the agency if we didn't have the team that we had help us. So let's go ahead and dive into sales teams. And we're going to start off with the junior advisors, aka the setters. So for every single closer that we have, we want 2 setters. And once again, these setters are the people doing the outbound calls. Whenever a lead comes in that doesn't book, they're calling the lead. Whenever a lead no shows, they're calling the lead. Any lead that basically isn't a paying client and doesn't already have a scheduled appointment, our setters are calling those leads. And we would train these setters every single day. And the training process was simply role played with them, and we did call reviews with them every single day for an hour every single day. It's very simple. Like I said in the beginning, our agency was simple. It was role play and call reviews. That's all we did for about an hour every single day. We just did the same reps over and over again. It's like the guy who studied Kobe Bryant for a day. Kobe just did the same drill over and over and over again. And the guy was like, "Kobe, why are you doing the same thing? Like, I thought you were going to show me something impressive." And Kobe basically said something like, "Well, these are the basics, and the basics work. I'm just going to keep practicing the basics, right? And that's where most people drop the ball. They try to get fancy, they try to get flashy, but you just need to do the basics over and over again. And then throughout the day, the sales manager would do quality control. So they would listen. We could actually, because of Kixie, that was the power dialer we used, we could actually listen in on the calls. We could see if the setters were actively calling leads. And we were trying to make sure that they were following the framework, they were following the script. And the sales manager's job was just to quality control everything to make sure things were running the way they were supposed to do. Now, there's a lot of ways that you could pay setters. This is how we paid our setters. We had different tiers. I love tiered commission plans because it incentivizes volume and incentivizes better performance, right? And if you show me, there's a famous economist who says, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. It is so true, right? So what we incentivized our setters on was volume. We wanted to get a tremendous amount of volumes of closes, right? If you're incentivizing your setters on sets or show rates, it's the wrong incentive, right? I want to incentivize my setters to get closed deals. So we had tiers 1 through 4. If they got 0 to 8 deals, they got 4% commission on the front end cash. Tier 2 was 9 to 15, so they get 5% commission, so on and so forth. All the way up to tier 4, where if they close 25 plus deals in a month, they get 6% commission. Plus, we gave our setters $1,000 to $1,500 a month base, depending on their experience. We're going to come back to sales manager here in a sec. Then we had our senior advisors, right? So on average, we had about 3 closers at any given time. Sometimes we had more, sometimes we had like 5. The lowest we probably had at any given time was 2. And I'll talk about the training for them first, and then we'll move on to their compensation. Actually, let's talk about their compensation first. So for our closers, we also had a tiered commission structure. So it was tier 1 through tier 4. They could get all the way up to 25% commissions, which is unheard of for closers. And some agency owners would tell me, oh, that's way too much. Listen, our agency was still profitable. Yes, we could have been more profitable, but I felt as though we attracted the best talent that we could attract with this type of commission plan. So, if they collected $65,000 cash in a month, that's not contract value, that's cash collected in the bank, they could get 25% commissions. We had closers sometimes making 15, 20, sometimes more, $1,000 every single month, right? And then on top of that, they would get bonuses. So if they hit a $50K a month benchmark, they'd get another $1,000. If they did $100K cash in a month, they get a $5,000 bonus. If they close a deal on a weekend or they self-set a close, they get an extra 1%. And then any referrals, we just gave them a flat 10% because those are laydowns, right? This goes back to the incentive quote that I just mentioned, right? Show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. Now, when it comes down to the training, we did the same exact thing that we did with the setters, right? We did daily training where we did role plays and we did call reviews every single day. And we did QC throughout the day. So our sales manager, he would listen to the sales calls. I would listen to the sales calls. We would make sure they're selling the right way. They're following the script. They're following the framework. They're doing everything that they're supposed to do. If you're in the agency boardroom community, you already have access to this entire pitch. You could just go through the school. You can go through the portal, go through the sales section, and you'll see the resource and you'll be able to access it. But I'll do a quick breakdown just for the people that aren't in the community. And our pitch was pretty unique, right? And we used a lot of Cole Gordon strategies, but we also kind of molded it into our own and used some other really great agency salespeople. So our framework was really simple. We did our discovery, we widened the gap, we created a lot of doubt. We did a lot of solution questions, cost, why now, consequence questions, right? Your typical support questions, their desired situations, and then we tied them down. And then in the actual pitch, we had 4 different pillars that we would follow in the pitch. And we did something called a Google Doc close, where we pretty much did the discovery and we laid out a custom game plan for them on the Google Doc. And we just followed this exact same pitch, right? So if you're in the community, once again, you can use this exact same pitch. It's what we use to close literally hundreds of agency clients every single year. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the sales manager. And I hope you guys are finding value. If you guys like this type of content, make sure you comment down below and drop a like for this video, guys. All right. So the sales manager position specifically, right? The sales manager is the guy who runs the shit, right? So he is the guy who's making sure the closers are doing what they're supposed to do. The setters are doing what they're supposed to do. And for the first couple of years, I was the sales manager. I was running the sales team every single day in the agency. And for the sales manager, the compensation was pretty simple. right? If cash collection was below $100,000, they just got a $3,000 draw. That was it, which was nothing for a sales manager. And we gave them that as kind of like a punishment. Like, here's $3,000. Honestly, it's like an insult. If the sales manager received $3,000, it's not a good thing. It's pretty bad, right? They should always be above 100K in cash collection. We wanted our sales manager to be anywhere from tier 2 to tier 3, which is 200 or $100,000 to 250,000, which they would get 4%. So, they can make like $10,000 in that tier. But tier 3 is the sweet spot where we could give them 6.5%, and they could be making upwards of $12,000 and more in commissions just from managing the sales team. This doesn't even include the deals and the commissions they can get from the deals that they close themselves. So this is just the management side of running the sales team. And my rule of thumb for the sales manager was to be at 200K in minimum cash collection every single month. This was just the rule. This is what they had to do. And if they didn't, then they weren't going to work out. So how do we actually get them to do that? Well, it starts off with accountability. So the first thing is weekly check-in calls. Then we have quantitative data, a clear North Star metric, which is the scorecard, and then our qualitative data. So this is how it all works out. Let's start off with the weekly check-in calls, right? So every single week, the sales manager would meet with all of their direct reports. So salespeople, setters, once a week, it would be a scheduled meeting, and they would go through this one-on-one framework. And in this framework, all we're doing is going over their performance. We're highlighting all the good stuff and all the low points from the past week. We're trying to figure out what they're excited about, right? Because if they're not excited for stuff outside of work, we know that they're going to lose a lot of momentum. We want to keep their sales is all about energy, right? So we want to make sure that they have a high degree of energy. And the way we do this is by checking on them in their personal life, because we don't have business problems. We have personal problems that reflect in our business, right? So we want to make sure they don't have any personal problems that are reflecting in their performance, aka their business. And then once we check up on them, then we're just focusing on call reviews and doing some extra training with them. And we have a lot of people just do call reviews wrong. So we have an entire framework for our sales manager to follow on how to actually execute and perform the call reviews. And we have a video training on how to actually do them, right? This is super important. Most people are doing call reviews wrong, and their closers aren't retaining any of the information. And as a result, they're actually doing more harm than good, which is not what we want with our closers. All right, now let's move on to our quantitative data, right? Because what gets tracked gets improved. So if a closer is complaining that things aren't working out, well, that's just emotional. And a lot of people make decisions based off emotion, but we don't want to do that in our business. Everything has to be based on numbers. So we would look at the data, and the data will often tell us what's wrong in the business before we even start to feel it, before we even start to notice it. We can start seeing the trends in the data. So for our agency, we tracked every single metric, and this really allowed us to make sure that we were making data-driven decisions to make sure that we weren't being emotional and making the wrong call. And when you have that data, you have so much more confidence, so much more knowledge and information in order to do the right thing for your team, for your business, and for your clients. But at the end of the day, data is nothing if you guys aren't enforcing, if you don't have a clear North Star metric. So at our agency, our closers had a clear metric of what they needed to hit every single month and how they were supposed to do it or how they could do it, right? And this is what we would call a scorecard. If you guys don't have something like this where there's a clear North Star metric for your team to hit, how are they ever going to know what to do? And then what happens if they don't hit that metric, right? So for us, the scorecard was very simple. This is your North Star. If you don't hit this, you can't be on the team for much longer. And this allowed us to maintain extremely high standards and make sure the team was doing what they were supposed to do. Now, the company can't just be ran with statistics and numbers, right? You need to have that human element. And sometimes you can't wait for that data to compile up. It takes weeks sometimes for you to see differences in the data. So we want to look for things that can pop up a lot quicker. And this is more so the qualitative data that we look at. So every single day, our closers would go in, they'd put a EOD report into Slack, and we would get all this information from them. How their day went, we get some data from them, what happened on every single call. So if they list, hey, I had a call with XYZ and the call didn't go well because he was just shopping around. Well, maybe the sales manager could check out that call now because he sees, well, he was just shopping around. Sounds like maybe we could have done something here. This sounds a little fishy. Let's go ahead and check and review that call. Every single sales call was automatically recorded
automatically put into a Slack channel called sales call recordings that only our sales manager had access to. That way, at any given time, he could check the EODs and he could just see which calls he wanted to fish through, and he could quality control all of that. He could QC everything. And then on top of that, we would get some more qualitative stuff. So their physical state, any mental clarity, their necessity, right? Any inspiration. How do they operate today? Did they operate at their potential? Are they going to hit projections, their overall performance rating, all the positive things that happen, all the negative things that happen? These are super crucial because without this information, we could be waiting weeks for data without knowing there's something fundamentally wrong with our team. And remember, we don't have business problems. We have personal problems that reflect in our business. So the accountability is great, but a lot of that is on the individual one-to-one setting. So what about the team setting, right? Because if people are noticing a lot of accountability, but they don't feel like there's a team environment, people really just don't like that. And that can cause a ton of turnover with your team. And that's definitely not something you want, right? So we had our sales manager follow this specific meeting structure. And every single day we would train our closers this way. So we have to start the meetings with a lot of energy. That's super important. So every meeting, what you'll notice, we'll start off with a call and response chant. So we'd say like, good morning, and say that. And then the closers would start clapping, right? That got people hyped up. Sometimes we would do like dance parties, and it was all Zoom. It's all virtual. So people would just dance in front of their camera. And we just have a good time, right? And in every meeting, you'll notice we start off with wins. That's the most important thing. And Mondays, it's the most important meeting. And we would review each closer's self-reflection from Friday, where they do a self-reflection of the week, how the week went. We do some objection handling role play on Mondays, and then we watch a motivational video to get them ready for the day. Then the next day, we're going over wins. We're doing a call review, and every day is basically a difference in the schedule, right? But this allowed our team to know, okay, what can they expect today? And it created some sort of rhythm for the training, which is what you need, right? People want consistency, especially in a startup culture like agencies. There's a lot of change that can happen. So it's good to have some level of base consistency, which is what we did with our daily team meeting every single day. And we already went over the call reviews and how we did that in the weekly check-in part. But once again, we have a very specific framework of how to actually perform call reviews. And throughout the week, our sales manager was performing 2-3 call reviews per closer. And if that information is not being delivered the right way, once again, it's just going to hurt the closer more than help the closer, which is the complete opposite of what we want. So as you can imagine, with all that accountability, with all these team meetings, it can seem a little corporate, right? It can seem a little stressful sometimes for our closers, and it was. So how do we actually retain them, make sure that they were happy? How do we get them continuing to show up with a positive mindset? Because at the end of the day, sales is all energy, right? You can run a lot of different departments in your business without energy. For example, a media buyer does not need energy to do their job. A CSM does not need energy to do their job, but a closer does need energy to do their job. So we had a few different things. Number one, a ring the bell channel. So whenever a closer closed a deal, there would be a Slack notification in the ring the bell channel, and there would be a fun GIF, and everyone would go crazy. The entire team, the back end team, the front end team, we just start throwing and congratulating the closer in the chat. That got people really excited, and it gave them this rush of dopamine. And now they would go out and try to close another deal because it's like this positive reinforcement, right? Then we would have a leaderboard. So everyone wanted to be at the top of the leaderboard, and we'd break it down weekly, we'd break it down monthly, we'd break it down yearly. That way, the top closer would always want to be at the top of the leaderboards. Closers are very competitive. So we had our leaderboard, right? And every closer would want to be at the top of the leaderboard. Every agency needs this. If you have, and this is why it's so important to have two closers, because closers just perform better when there's this natural competition, right? Speaking of competitions, we would have competitions where we would do double commissions for the day to the top closer. We would do 2K top closer of the month bonus. So whoever was the top closer, they get 2K. But we'd say something like, well, you have to collect a minimum of $40,000 in cash, right? And that gave everyone this benchmark, right? And then we would do a bonus where we said 1K bonus to each team member if we achieve XYZ in cash collection for this week or for the month. And what did that do, right? Sometimes that forced the team to work together to help them level up, help one improve. If one closer is closing at 30%, one closer is closing at 10%, but there's a bonus on the line and everyone on the team has to perform, that's going to incentivize the top closer to actually help lift up the bottom closer. And if you have the A players lifting up your B players, your team is rigged at that point. Then we had core values, right? and we had our mission and our vision statement. And we mentioned this on as many meetings as we possibly could. I wish we could say every meeting. It should be done every meeting, but we mentioned it multiple times a week. We would do core value shout outs, right? Like, thank you for being a customer chair. Thank you for being a rising tide that raises all ships. Thank you for being the CEO of your role, right? Like, hey, Mr. Closer, you went out there, you called that lead that was 9 months old, right? Thanks for being the CEO of your role and taking care of that. Or you saw that client that you just signed up, he still hasn't gotten his onboarding call. Thanks for being the CEO of your role and reaching out to that client, or being a rising tide, right? So we could use this language, this empowering language, to kind of direct our team, the type of energy and the type of culture we wanted them to create. And we use positive reinforcement, like doing core value shout outs, to get them and mold the team into running the company the way that we wanted it to run. Because Matt and I, we're like two people. We can't be everywhere and see everything. So if our team, if we know they have the same values as us and everyone's on the same page, there's a lot more confidence that things are going to get done the right way and that the ball isn't going to be dropped. That's why core values are so important. It's so important for the culture and for the energy of the company. In the scorecards, the core values, all of this stuff, the data tracking, guys, this applies to all the other departments. I'm not going to break down the data tracking, the core values, and all of that stuff for every single department, because for the most part, it's all the same. Some things are tweaked here and there, but I am going to break down the team structure. So let's go ahead and move on to the client success team and raving fans. So let's first break down the team. Let's start off with the raving fan reps. Their role is simple. It's to decrease the repetitive support issues for the client success coach. So if the client success coach is constantly getting emails about this issue or that issue, right? The raving fans rep job is to decrease. The raving fan rep, by the way, guys, is typically an offshore team member, and they're compensated less because of the cost of living in comparison to a client success coach who is more normally US based, Canadian based. And we have to pay them a lot more. So because we're paying them maybe like $60 an hour if you break down their hours in a 40-hour work week, right? Or like $50 an hour, whatever it may be, versus the Raven fan rep might be getting $10 an hour, right? I'd rather have the Raven fan rep do the job that a CSC might be a little overqualified for. Not saying one job is more important than the other, but if I'm paying the CSC for doing something specific, I want him to focus all their energy and attention on that one thing. It prevented us from having to hire multiple client success coaches, and we were able to just hire a couple of Raven fan reps, and that was so much cheaper than hiring, another head of client success or another client success coach, and save the company probably extra $100,000 a year by doing that. So their job is to decrease repetitive support. It's responding to any support emails. So the head of client success or client success didn't actually respond to any written communication. The raving fan rep did all of that stuff, answering any technical questions. So for example, if a client has an issue with high level, the raving fan rep can jump in instead of the head of client success or client success coach having to troubleshoot a simple issue. They're also looking for upsell opportunities and testimonial opportunities, and they're also responsible for making sure any failed payments are collected and monitoring our community, which I'll break down here in a second. And every time we got a failed payment, the Raven fan rep would take the client through this and go through the script. We had a massive failed payment issue, and once we instituted the Raven fan rep and incentivized them to collect on failed payments, we significantly improved the collection rate, and it dramatically saved the agency tens of thousands of dollars every single month easily. And on top of that, the Raven fan rep was responsible for tracking the churn. And by tracking the churn, we could easily figure out our lifetime value. We also had a billing tracker in there so they could track all the clients' billing statuses, and that made sure that every single client was paid up. And, we had 200 clients, so it was really easy for us to forget about charging this client and charging that client. So we just put everything into a simple Google Sheet tracker. Right. Now, the training of the Raven fan rep is the same training as the client success coach, right? We do a daily team meeting. We role play with them. So we role play upset clients, holding clients accountable, how to onboard clients, and we also role play upsells, right? So just like we train the sales team every single day, we also train the client success team every single day. Now, the client success coach's job is a little bit different. Their job is more so coaching clients privately via Zoom calls, right? Holding them accountable, how to call their leads, how to sell, going through mindset issues. And then they would also do an ABR call, which we'll break down, which is an anti-buyer's remorse call. So whenever a client signed up, they would get a call from our client success coach coach, welcoming them to the program and preventing buyer's remorse. And then they would also manage all the group client welcome calls where we would set expectations for every single client that came on. And they were also looking for upsells and testimony opportunities. Remember, a client success team is essentially just a back-end sales team. So our client success team, they were constantly just figuring out how do we ascend clients to the next level, to the next upsell. And overall, it was about increasing LTV. Now, for the client success coach, it is such a crucial job. A lot of people, they don't pay their client success coach that much. Our client success coaches, they could be making $10,000 a month. At our agency, our client success coach was typically the highest paid person, even more so than the closers, right? And they only had a $36,000 per year base, but they made all their money from the bonuses, right? So this is the ideal bonus structure that we didn't actually implement for this agency. I implemented this for another agency, but it's probably the best bonus structure that a client success coach could have, where you give them a percentage of the MRR. So for example, if they're managing $60,000 in MRR, we could give them 8% of that MRR. That way they're incentivized to make sure clients never leave, because technically now that's part of their business, right? If you can make sure every single person on your team has a piece of the pie, they're going to start treating the business as your own, because it kind of is, right? And then they would get incentives for upsells, they get incentives for referrals, and they would also get incentives for success interviews. All right. Let's go ahead and break down a few more things. So this is the deck that we would take clients through. I have an entire video on the channel of us doing this and setting expectations and how we would onboard clients. But this was probably one of the most effective ways to set really strong expectations, make sure that clients knew exactly what to expect, what they were supposed to do, how to have success with our program. And it was kind of like propaganda. We were pretty much just reselling the client on why we're the best, right? And we just want to get them really excited to start working with us. Now, this is the anti-buyer remorse script. So whenever a client came in, the client success coach would go ahead and call the client. They would follow this script, and they would basically get the client ready to get onboarded and make sure they had everything they needed in order to have success with the program. And because we had so many clients, we were constantly focused on how do we systemize as much as possible? How do we make sure, similar to McDonald's, when you go to one McDonald's, it's probably going to be a pretty similar experience to another McDonald's. You know, sometimes the fries can be a little saltier, maybe a little less salty, but overall, the experience is pretty much the same. And that's what we wanted to create as well, right? We wanted to systemize it. So there's a lot of Google Docs, there's a lot of SOPs, and even how do we have conversations with our clients on check-in calls, right? We had this entire framework. We had something called the coaching commandments of what they needed to focus on their coaching calls, how we would report to clients, what we would highlight. All of this stuff was super important to making sure that we had a similar experience for every single client that joined the program. Now, for any reason, if a client wasn't happy or there was a specific scenario, we also had that broken down and SOP'd out, like what to say, what to do if, for example, a client's not getting enough leads, if the client has issues with lead quality, right? We had an entire document breaking all of that stuff down. So everything was SOP'd out. And this is what a multi-million-dollar agency looks like, right? If a client had lead quality issues, we went through all of these scenarios, right? So for every issue a client could incur, we probably had a solution and an answer for that, which helped prepare our team and make sure that they were ready to handle any client issues that could come up, right? And then if a client wanted to leave, we pretty much just turned this into a client save process, right? So any client that joined our program, they had to do an exit interview in order to get offboarded. If they didn't, we would charge them a cancellation fee. So this made most clients just want to hop on a call with us. And by the time they hopped on a call, I would say for every 10 clients that wanted to leave, we probably saved 7 or 8 of them just by following this simple framework. Just by making sure every time a client came on, just by making sure every time a client wanted to leave, we would go through the most important parts by figuring out what they hated about it and what they also like about our program, and figuring out how to come to some sort of common ground. Typically, guys, retention is all psychological. We've had clients that we've made tens of thousands of dollars for, and they still want to leave. And then we just have to take them through this process to make them realize that it's irrational, right? A lot of business owners are irrational. So you kind of have to reinforce everything with reason, with data, and with facts, which is kind of how we came up with the client exit interview framework. Now, those are pretty much the scenarios if clients aren't happy. But if they are happy, then we would take them through our success interview framework, where we were constantly trying to get them success interviews, which is how we created that entire wall of testimonials, right? Because we incentivized our team to get as many interviews as possible. We had an actual framework. If you guys are noticing, one of the most common things is that we had a document, an SOP for every little detail in the agency, and that allowed us to scale without Matt and I actually doing any of the work, because everything was just systematized, right? And then after the testimonial interview, we would upsell them on our back-end offer, right? So you need to have some sort of ascension program, and you need to turn your client success team just into another sales team. That's so important. So that's the client success. Let's move on to something that's really, really cool, which is our guest coaches in the Facebook group, right? So there's a lot of agencies that do ISAs. We never wanted to do ISAs. We much preferred to just coach our clients on how to convert the leads themselves. It created a lot less operational complexity. It was a lot easier. So we hired coaches, right? We found the best of the best. We went on YouTube. We found people in our network. We found existing clients that were crushing it who could coach our clients that were struggling, right? We paid them $200 to $350 a call. We had about 3 coaching calls. So we had a mindset coach, we had a paid ads coach who was actually a realtor who made millions from lead gen ads. We had a sales coach who's another realtor who sold 100 houses in a single year. And we were getting significantly better results than most agencies that had some sort of call center, just by putting the control back in the client's hand and actually empowering them to be the best versions of themselves through our coaching program. So we would do competitions, right? Where we would do like the Estate AI agent lottery. They would post a lot of wins in our Facebook group, which is another reason as to why our testimonial wall was so big, right? Then we also had our course. We had our mastermind within our course where people could watch videos on setting appointments, closing appointments, how to fire themselves, how to systemize their business. We had a ton of resources for them as well. And then we also had the Facebook group where they could network and where all the group coaching calls were held. So that was the product, and that was pretty much the entire client success team. All right, let's go ahead and move on now to the media buying or the fulfillment team. So we had 2 junior media buyers and we had 1 senior media buyer who managed 2 junior media buyers, right? So the senior media buyer's job is to ensure the scorecard is being achieved, and the junior media buyer's job is to execute on the scorecard. And the training would be the same, right? So every single day we train the team. If you guys are noticing, we also trained our teams, every single team, every single department, every single day, right? So they would do Canva/graphic design training, they would do copywriting training, and then they would also do account reviews, because we had like 200 clients once again. So they would go through and they would see which clients needed help, how to solve certain issues with decreasing CPLs, et cetera, right? So the media buyers had their own scorecards just like every other role. And they were typically managing about 100 accounts each, right? And their outcomes were simple, right? They needed a CPL lower than $35, and they needed to make sure onboardings were done within 48 business hours to build everything out, right? And by having this scorecard, it really allowed our team to be super efficient, and it forced us to come up with efficiencies in order to make sure that the team could actually handle 100 accounts per junior media buyer. So how do we actually get the media buyers to do that without stressing them out? It was actually very simple. So first thing first, we had Monday.com, and I can maybe make a video about that as well another time, but we had full visibility to see which accounts were in KPI, and we had a simple red, yellow, green DEFCON system, right? And that allowed us to manage a lot of clients without having to go through every ad account manually and checking it. All the data just fed into Monday, and we could see where all the problem accounts were, right? Because once you build the account, you typically don't need to check it unless issues start happening with the metrics, with the KPIs, with their cost per leads, etc. So Monday.com allowed us to just see everything from a broad view, a bird's eye view, without having to check with a magnifying glass every little account, which would take too much time. And our media buyers wouldn't be able to handle 100 accounts each at that point. Then we had productized ads, and we had an entire library of copy and paste creatives, copies, and campaign structures that the media buyers could just copy, right? So if a client came in, if they were in a rural area, if they were in a city, we already knew what type of campaign we could pull from, and we had an SOP for it. We could grab that SOP, implement it, and their account could be built. Their ads could be built in 15 minutes because we already had everything built. We just had to plug it into their ad account now. All right, let's actually show you one of these creatives that we ran for one of our clients. So we had this entire library, and I'll just pick this one. This one's actually really funny.
I was like, good gracious, I lived here so long. I want something new that I can call home. Looking for the right time to buy a new house. Everybody is
All right, so like a funny ad, and we'd had templated ads just like that, a ton of video ads that seemed customized, right? They were high production, but we could use that for 70 accounts, 90 accounts, 200 accounts, and it would crush, right? And when you have productized stuff like that, you can start figuring out what works, what doesn't work, which is best for the client, because then you don't even have to worry about reinventing the wheel. All right, so just to recap, we went over all the teams now at this point, and like I mentioned, guys, they all have scorecards, they all follow the same core values, etc. And as you can notice, the biggest commonality is that we just had a lot of SOPs, we trained them a lot, we went over marketing. So now let's move on to one of the most important things, which is operations. How do we run such a massive operation? 200 plus clients, all these team members, all these employees, all these bills that we had to pay. So let's break everything down. First and foremost, this is the team for ops. We had our ops manager and we had our tech wizard, right? And the tech wizard job, it wasn't to build GHL sub accounts, how most people have a tech guy in their agency. Our tech guy's job was to run everything internally for the agency that we needed to be super efficient without having to hire a bunch of people. We just tried to automate as much as we possibly can and push our team to their limits by making their job very efficient. So for the automation specialist job, they had one simple outcome, and that's exactly what their scorecard and their mission was. It was to create and maintain the technological infrastructure of the company, and to create a robust, comprehensive backend that is as automated as possible. And trust me, we really, really did that. Our tech guy is the guy who built the entire AI system. It's not a software we use. He built it himself. Like, it was our own proprietary AI thing that we had, right? It was super, super cool. And on top of that, we had this entire system check. This made sure that, if something broke, we could identify it. And once again, we had a bird's eye view. So every single automation, every single system was plugged into this tracker, and we could see in real time if something had broke, if something was wrong. And this allowed us to make sure everything was working. We probably had thousands and thousands of zaps and workflows and things like that were running the agency. I shouldn't say thousands, but hundreds, definitely hundreds, probably at least 1,000 of different automation systems, sequences, workflows. So this really allowed us to make sure that things were running smoothly. Now, the ops manager's job was to oversee the tech wizard and make sure that stuff was being executed on that the ops manager wanted in order to increase efficiency. And the ops manager's main job was to increase efficiency. And the way we tracked that was through revenue per head, right? So we wanted a $15,000 revenue per head per month per employee. So if we had 10 employees, we wanted $150,000 in revenue. And this measured efficiency. If you have a revenue per head for an agency at around 15,000, you're pretty efficient, right? Anything above that, you're really efficient. 10,000, it's not bad, but it's also not perfect. Anything below that, you're probably an inefficient team. And that also includes the owners, and any VAs, anyone in the company is included in that. And one of the biggest levers that they used in order to make sure the team was efficient was by creating different strategies, right? Creating new SOPs, new processes, but then they also had to get the team on board. And the way we did that is through the company culture. It's the biggest lever that the ops manager can pull in order to change certain behaviors. So for example, we did a team retreat. There's a video on the channel, and we'll try to include some B-roll on here for you for that, right? We did all hands in meetings, right? Where we would bring on a virtual magician, a virtual comedian, right? That built the culture. That made people want to show up, want to stay in the company. If you're just making people do things and follow SOPs and follow numbers, and they don't like where they work, they're not going to do it. So we wanted to make it a fun environment where they didn't want to leave, but they also realized they had to get stuff done, right? We would have an employee of the month, and the employee of the month would get to spin the wheel. And if they spun the wheel, they could win, a Tesla for a day. We'd rent them a Tesla, dinner for two, a house cleaning. We'd get them a private chef for a day, right? We also had a health wins channel, right? Where people could post their health wins, right? We're in a virtual environment. People are constantly sitting. We want them to be active. We want them to be engaged. If they're going out for a run, I want them to create a little community, a competition within the company, and post in the health wins channel. That's going to make our company healthier. That's going to make our company more productive and a better place to work. Next, just hiring the right people, right? If you hire a bunch of C players, guess what? Your company is going to be filled with C players, and your performance is going to be of C player performance, which is not what you want, because your revenue is also going to reflect that. If you guys want to hire A players, you have to follow my 7-figure hiring playbook, and I break it all down for you. It's actually a video on the channel. So this is the exact playbook that you guys should follow. It's on the channel. Feel free to check it out after you watch this video. And if you do all of these things, your culture is going to be rigged, and you're going to probably have one of the best agency cultures out there. It's not that hard hard to beat most agencies when it comes to cultures. Most agencies don't have a culture whatsoever, but you want to have a good culture that's going to create an amazing team, and an amazing team is going to create an amazing company. All right, guys. So we're almost done. I just want to go over one last thing, which is the org chart, right? So there's Matt and I, and we're partners. And then we have the head of fulfillment and the head of client success. They all report to Matt. And then we have the sales manager and the fractional CMO. They report to me. Right. So I manage front end, Matt manages the back end. And then we had a fractional CFO. For all these managers, we tried to promote within. And by having all these managers, it allowed us to buy back our time because we didn't have to directly report to the salespeople didn't have to directly report to us. The sellers didn't have to report to us. The junior media buyers didn't have to report to Matt, right? It allowed them to report directly to the managers because then now I'm only managing 2 people and Matt's only managing 2 people. And it's a lot easier to make sure 2 people are doing what they're supposed to do than it is to make sure 12 people are doing what they're supposed to do. And then lastly, we had our fractional CFO who did all of our bookkeeping. And now that brings me to the last thing that we're talking about, which is finances, right? So we did 2 times a month reporting, and this allowed us to make sure that our numbers were solid, right? There was a lot of cash coming in the agency. So there were big swings, right? We could make a couple $100,000 in a month and add it to the bank account. And you could also lose it, right? So you need to make sure that you're constantly looking at your cash, make sure that you can pay your bills, make sure you can pay your team, make sure that you can keep the company running. That's super important. And then we did a 1 time a month trim the fat meeting, right? Where we went through all the expenses in the company and we would trim the fat. And we would get these reports. And as you can see right here, for example, this is our Amex statement. So we could have $100K in just any given month on the Amex. Literally what most agencies are trying to get to, $100K a month in revenue, we were spending that just on our Amex bill alone. So, right, there's a lot of cash, there's a lot of numbers that we're constantly looking at. So you have to have constant bookkeeping, you have to have good reporting. And this is how our reports looked. This wasn't our best month, but it also wasn't our worst month, right? Like revenue was down, but profit was up. It was a great month in terms of profit, almost 40% net margin. And once again, that's without Matt and I being involved in the day-to-day of the agency because we had the managers, right? And it was 192K in revenue, 116K we spent that month, and you can break it down, right? Like you can see our net profit, you can see where our labor is, you can see how much cash we have in the bank. And I'm doing a full video actually about agency finances and how to increase profit, all of that stuff. It actually might be out by the time you're watching this. So make sure you check that out. But overall, guys, that is it. That is me exposing my multi-million-dollar agency. I hope you guys got value. Once again, appointments, teams, systems, and finances.
That's the entire blueprint of my $3.6 million agency. Now, I know this can feel overwhelming and you might feel lost or confused about what you're doing. So if you want to scale your agency to multiple 7 figures without doing it on hard mode, being misled by these fake gurus, and you want to use the exact same model that has helped hundreds of agency owners reach 6 and 7 figures, even in competitive niches, then do yourself a favor, click the link in the description to see how I can help you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!